Who is Berkly Catton? Berkly Catton is an 18-year-old forward out of Canada, and he is 5'11", 163, a left-hand shot. And looking at some of Catton's stats throughout his most recent stops, he has been started playing with the Saskatoon Outlaws, then went to the Bandits U15 team, the Saskatoon Contacts, the U18 team, played at Shattuck St. Mary's in 2021, 2022, then went to back to Saskatoon for the U18 AAA team, played for the Spokane Chiefs in the WHL last season, as well as the World Junior Canadian team, the U17s and the U18s, and then played with the Spokane Chiefs this past season in the WHL. And just listen to some of these numbers. Last year for Spokane, Catton had 54 goals, 62 assists, 116 points in 68 games. For Spokane in 2022-2023, he had 23 goals, 32 assists, 55 points in 63 games. So 54 goals in 68 games, not bad. Not bad by any stretch of the imagination. But what does Scott Wheeler think about Berkly Catton and his potential at the next level? Here is Scott Wheeler's breakdown from The Athletic about Berkly Catton. The WHL's fourth leading scorer this season, Catton registered 54 goals and 120 points in a combined 72 regular season and playoff games on a Spokane team that lost more games than it won. He had real pedigree even before this season, too, as a number one pick into the WHL, was an offensive catalyst on a bad Chiefs team in his rookie season, who also led Canada Red to a silver as a captain of the World Under-17 Hockey Challenge with 12 points in 7 games, and then again captained Canada at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup with a tournament-leading 8 goals and 10 points in 5 games. He's dangerous whenever he's on the puck and shines with this knifing, slippery game inside the offensive zone, the way he baits and shades, drawing players to him, and then playmaking past them with a pass or a cut is pretty impressive to watch. Catton is a heady playmaker who uses spacing to his advantage and sees the ice at an advanced level, regularly executing quick plays through coverage or delaying into a pre-planned play. He's got multi-dimensional skill with an ability to play both with speed on the rush. He is a smooth, fast, and nimble high-end skater, and more slowly inside the offensive zone when the pace ramps down and he has to spin away from pressure, which he does so well. He's got great instincts offensively. He tracks back consistently and will get up and under sticks to win his fair share of battles. With more room to round out his game defensively, mostly in his own zone, he thrives in tight spaces on cutbacks. He can play on the perimeter or take it to the net, and he's got a dangerous and quick release while moving. He does such a good job losing defenders with his back to them to avoid getting pinned down because of how adjustable his skating is through stops and starts and tight turns. He draws a lot of penalties with his skating too. Catton went from fitting right in as a rookie who was asked to play center on a top line and handled it extremely well. He even won the majority of his draws last year, to constantly threatening as a deceptive and dangerous player offensively has positioned him as one of the top forward prospects in the draft. He was also a top penalty killer in the WHL this year. He's got some very translatable top 6 elements with his skating and skill type. Wheeler believes he's got the chops to stick as a center, despite being on the smaller side as well, because you want him getting touches lower in the zone so that his skating can lead in transition. He's got a bit of an injury history, which has impacted a couple of off seasons and led to him sitting out of the U18 Worlds, but he is an exciting talent. We'll move to the hockey writers, Logan Horn, with a draft profile of Berkly Catton. And here's how he ranks amongst skaters for the 2024 NHL draft. Elite Prospects has him ranked 8th. Flow Hockey, Chris Peters has him ranked 7th. Tony Ferrari has him ranked 2nd. FC Hockey has him 5th. NHL Central Scouting has him 9th. And then a couple of writers at the Hockey Writers, Baracchini has him 5th. Forbes has him 5th. And Horn has him 7th. Here is Logan Horn's profile on Berkly Catton. Berkly Catton is an excellent player, excellent center prospect who had a phenomenal draft season, and it all began with a dominant performance in the Hlinka Gretzky Cup back in the summer. Catton captained Team Canada to a gold medal finish, leading the tournament in goals with 8 and points with 10 in just 5 games. He has carried that momentum into the WHL wonderfully this year, giving him a chance to hear his name very early on draft day. Catton excels in all facets of the game with no glaring weaknesses whatsoever besides his lack of size. He is excellent on his edges, which more than makes up for his average top speed, allowing him to blow by opponents with clever routes and pure agility. Catton is so slippery, in fact, that he draws a ton of penalties at the junior level, which he can often capitalize on as the motor that runs his team's top power play unit. He's a great passer, and his strong foundation of puck skill allows him to release passes from spots that most prospects can't even imagine while still being in control. He makes a ton of tough plays look routine in traffic, where defenders have to be ready for him to either deke through them or catch their attention for long enough to pass to an open teammate. He's been excellent as a center despite his size so far, winning a ton of faceoffs and checking really consistently as a top-line pivot for the last 2 seasons. Catton works hard defensively and wins a ton of puck battles through timing and consistency rather than pure size or strength. So I think he's got a real chance to be a center in the NHL when all is said and done. Catton has been a major offensive leader for the Spokane Chiefs for the past 2 seasons and is even one of the top players in the WHL this season. Be prepared to hear a lot of Zach Benson comparisons in the lead up to the drafts. They're both undersized WHL forwards with a ton of offense in their draft years. Horn liked Benson's compete level and hockey sense quite a bit more than Catton's and would offer Logan Cooley as a more comparable prospect, at least as a draft year prospect. As Horn has alluded to, the only thing that will really hold Catton back on draft day is his size. The NHL Central Scouting Bureau measured him at just a hair under 5'11", which would be quite small for an NHL center. While there's always a chance he moves to the wing as a pro, Horn does think he competes well and has a good skill set to be an NHL center someday if he can build up enough strength. The only thing that Horn would mention about Catton's projection is that nothing about him screams elite. Okay, so this is probably, that hits a little red flag for me. He's excellent at everything, but there isn't one trait that really pops out when you watch him play. For Cole Yzerman, it's the shot. With Ivan Demidov, it's the hands. With Caden Lindstrom, it's the compete level. That may limit Catton's ultimate ceiling as an NHL player, though Horn does expect he'll be a really great pro player. Catton was drafted first overall back in the 2021 WHL Bantam draft and was excellent right off the bat. He scored 55 points in 63 games as a rookie last season, who was put right into the deep end as Spokane's first-line center, which was the second highest total on the team. Some people bring up Catton's absolutely massive ice time. He plays Nathan McKinnon-type minutes most nights as a reason for his production to be less impressive, but Horn just doesn't buy that. This is not a strong Spokane team, but Catton has willed them to the WHL playoffs this year. If he can push them through a round or 2 in the playoffs, then watch out for Catton on draft day because he could rise even further. The draft projection, I think Berkly Catton is a near lock as a top 10 pick this year, with room to rise if he has a good showing in the WHL playoffs. He's a great center prospect, and I think the questions around his size will be less significant than they were with someone like Benson in last year's draft. Benson went 13th in a stronger draft class, so Horn thinks that's pretty much the latest Catton could go this year, 13th. Let's take a look at his strengths. Excellent skating, goal scoring, Great skill set for an NHL center and a creative passer. And areas to work on will be filling out his frame. NHL potential. I see Catton becoming a really good top 6 forward in the NHL with no real weaknesses to hold him back and a ton of offense to give. Horn thinks there's a real chance he could become a top-line center in the NHL, though he thinks it's unlikely he'd be an elite one. Horn could also see him becoming a great top 6 winger if the team that drafts him doesn't need him down the middle or sees it as a better fit. Horn expects he'll play all of his eligible seasons in the WHL before turning pro, meaning he'll be a serious contender for WHL MVP next season if he doesn't win it this year, and should be a big member of Canada's team at the 2025 World Junior Championships. So that's a lot to take in for Berkly Catton. The thing that stands out for me, and I talked about this yesterday, is, those signature traits. Like, yes, it's great to have players that are good at everything, but that's the thing that kind of makes these players stand out in these draft rankings and in potentially taking somebody at 13th overall, is just that one trait that kind of sets them apart from everybody else. And so the fact that Horn mentioned that Catton doesn't necessarily have one, that's kind of a red flag for me. And also, the size too. This is where we talked about this with some of the other profiles, is the guys that have the size that have the skill to go with it. Like that's kind of a separator for me, but Catton's still obviously a very polished player that could be an option for the Wild at 13.